we're going to look at the principles that shape and govern our experiences today from a quantum level. So, we all see and feel and go through life at a macro level, but the real movement, the real motion, the real activity occurs at a quantum level. Now let's find out what that is. It sounds complicated, but it's not complicated at all. It's quite simple. If we look at life from a different lens, and that's what we're going to do today. Now, what do we understand by life's experiences? What are they? In simple terms, life's experiences encompass every event and experience that each one of us encounters during our short journey here in this material world. Every event and every experience, all these come together to form life's experiences. Our life's experiences shape us in so many ways. For example, they make us who we are at a material level. They show us perceptions of what we think we are, often incorrect perceptions. And in fact, these perceptions are incorrect over 90% of the time. And when anyone dares to challenge our perception of ourselves, God help them, because they usually end up receiving a very hostile response from us. So we are all prone to defending our perceptions. We are all prone to defending what is 90% incorrect, 90+% incorrect most of the time. Ever wondered why we waste so much time and energy and create so much turmoil over defending the largely incorrect illusions of our lives? Of course, the ego plays a big role in creating these incorrect perceptions. So we're going to now shift into a different lens. Now, next, our life's experiences shape how we feel about ourselves and about everything for that matter. They are deeply anchored in our emotional body. And this raises questions which we should ask ourselves regularly, such as, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Do I feel lonely with or without having people around me? Do I feel validated? And even more so, what price do I pay to receive validation of others who are no more than mere passers-by in my short life? I pay a big price. In a circus, a clown makes a fool of himself or herself and gets validated with laughs by an audience he or she doesn't even know. Many people gossip about others to gain attention of anxious listeners who are not worth wasting time over. The attention their gossip receives also brings validation. Many run up credit card debts to buy things and show them off so that they feel noticed and validated. So when we look at it from a distance, doesn't it all seem so futile? And while we pursue such validations, we are wasting precious jewels of time that will never come back. And worse still, we may be closing doors to beautiful events, experiences, and opportunities while we focus on the pointless. So the next question would be, when you look at your life's experiences, do I look forward to each day and each moment of my life? Or do I just live through them without any appreciation of their true value? Okay, so I've put a few aspects of life's experiences before you, and I'm sure you can all add a great deal more to this list. But this brings us to the important question. What governs our life's experiences? What governs our life's experiences? And I believe it is not one single thing, but let us explore the umbrella that covers the key governing principles behind our events and experiences, and what we do with them, and what we make of them. So to do that, let us go back to the story of the eternal pool, from my second book, Parables from the Origin. And in this parable, I'll relate it very shortly, but in this parable, there is two young kids, Ibrahim and Sarah. And they are in a forest, a beautiful forest, dense forest, and they are with their great teacher. And during the daytime, the teacher shows them and teaches them about the laws of the forest. And at night, he teaches them about higher things. And so these two little kids are going with their teacher, and as they're walking through the forest, they reach a point where there is a circle, and there's 7 very tall trees around the circle. The trees are so tall that they reach the sky. The roots go so deep into the earth. So these are really, really tall trees. And in the middle of this circle, there is a pool which is flowing, a beautiful pool. Now Sarah, who is always used to taking whatever she wants from the forest, rushes to the pool and jumps in to get for a drink of fresh water, and turns out she is very disappointed because what is flowing there is not water. So she is quite disappointed and says to her teacher, she said, "This pool is false. I need water. I'm thirsty. I'm hot. I need to splash the water on my face, but this is not water." And the great teacher said, "Well, today is an important day because you get to learn about this pool. And it is called the eternal pool." Now he said to both of them, "Take a close look at what it does. What do you notice?" They said, "Well, it comes out of the core of the earth and it flows." And the teacher said, "Exactly, it flows." Now he said, "Today, it's just 2 of you in this forest. But in time to come, there will be millions of you. And this forest will no longer be a forest. But the eternal pool will always be with you. It will always flow through you, bringing you resources. It will provide for all your needs. It will bring you knowledge. It will bring you learning. It will bring you happiness. This eternal pool will always flow through you throughout your life's journey." But he said there is one law that you must always follow, which is that you must always allow it to flow. So when you receive with one hand, keep your other hand open and let a portion of what you receive go to others and share. And this is the fundamental tenet of a lot of religious beliefs as well, which talk about tithe, which talk about charity, where, we may receive 10 and we give away 1. But the fact that we are giving away 1 keeps us as part of the flow of the eternal pool. Now, there's more than just giving money. Eternal pool is not about money. It's about resources. And resources is not just about physical resources. It can even be something as simple as seeing someone who's dejected and giving them a smile. That is also giving. If you are a doctor and someone is suffering and they cannot afford going to the hospital, you give them a free treatment. If you're a lawyer and someone is stuck and cannot afford to pay the bills, you help them out. Even a kind word is giving. So as long as what you receive is allowed to flow from the other hand, you will remain within the flow of the eternal pool. And with that, you will always be abundant. You will always be provided for. You will always be happy and fulfilled. And this is what the teacher had to say to Ibrahim and Sarah, that this is a fundamental lesson you're learning today, because what's going to follow from here is there's going to be a humanity that's going to be so massive that you cannot even imagine. But this pool is present with each one of you. Now, this brings us to the question, how does the eternal pool really work? To understand that, we need to go to a much deeper level, starting with the material dimension of each one of us. Now here's a good example. Let's look at the material dimension of each one of us. Let's say that I am sitting with you, and let's say you're a young lady, and somebody takes a picture of the two of us, you sitting on one side, me sitting on the other. If you see the photograph, you can tell that is Amyn and that is the young lady. Very clear. So now we decide, let's look at our hands only. And so we both place our hands on the table, and he takes a picture. And when we look at the picture, we can still tell this is my hand and this is her hand. Fair enough. Now we go one level lower, we take an X-ray. When we take the X-ray, we just have the bone now. And you see a picture of two bones. But seeing that, my bone may be larger than hers, you can still say that's his bone and that's hers. Fair enough. Let's go one level smaller. Let's go and do an MRI. Now in the MRI, we're seeing sections. Now it's very hard to tell which hand is whose, which bone is whose, because they look the same. And we say, all right, let's go even one level lower, and let's go through this really advanced electron microscope. So we take a section of our bone, put it in the microscope, and now we just see very tiny quantum particles moving. That's all we see. And you can't tell which particles are hers or which particles are mine, because both are identical. They are one. They are the same particles. And then we say, all right, let's take a sample of a meteorite and let's crush it to dust, and let's put it also under an electron microscope together with sections of our bone, and let's see what we get. We see the same quantum particles. Well, let's take moon dust and put that in. We see exactly the same quantum particles. And I call this the oneness particles. Because no matter where you go in the universe, as long as we exist in this three-dimensional life, and we view things with our eyes with three dimensions and a material signature, we are going to see exactly the same quantum particles for all of us. So we are all made up of exactly the same common particles. And as I said, I call these particles the oneness particles. And they are common to all creation, from a human being to a plant, to a meteor, to moon dust, or for that matter, and they are the same for us all throughout the universe. Oneness particles, making us all one in every sense of the word. In the past, when we talked of oneness, we did not have the technology to see our quantum particles. Today we do. And you can't tell them apart. They are all the same, they are all one. And that's where different notions of the God particles have come from and all. But we are all made of the same particles at a quantum level. We are all one, even in a material sense. Spiritually, we have learned we are one, but even in a material sense, we are one. Now, the other thing is, when you look at these particles, they are constantly moving. There is constant motion. And this constant motion is a signature of our material world. Time, motion, and change. These are signatures of our material world. Everything follows these three factors: time, motion, and change. And we all live by these three signature factors, knowingly and unknowingly. So what makes these particles, oneness particles, move? It is the life energy, guided by life intelligence, that drive our common oneness particles constantly. When we talk of one essence of humanity, one essence of all creation, that is indeed the one life force that moves the oneness particles. It's the same one life force that we all share. Many scriptures have said, and we created you from one soul. It's one life source, and we all are made up of the same oneness particles. Now, when we look at this motion, the intelligence that governs how these particles move and flow is what we call our consciousness. As you know, we have an individual consciousness that emanates from within our own individual self, and when combined with all creation, we form a collective consciousness. So we have the individual consciousness and the collective consciousness. And this is what drives and gives life and energy and moves our quantum particles. And this is where we come back to the flow of the eternal pool, which we can now explore via the oneness particles. What do they do? And see what they do. We see how they behave and what they create in our life's experiences. That's all connected to the eternal pool. Now, what is the basic root of consciousness? It is thought. Pure and simple thought. That's the basic root of consciousness. So let us look at how the eternal pool flows in direct accordance with our thoughts and consciousness. Let us look at it firstly from an individual level. For simplicity's sake, let us group the life force and consciousness into two simple bands that exist above and below a zero level. As we know from high school math classes, there is zero, and then everything below zero is negative, everything above zero is positive. So I hope we are all clear on that. There's a zero level, everything above is positive, everything below is negative. Basic, plus and minus. Let us say that the negative band is made up of our thoughts and consciousness that lie below zero, from -1 to -2 to -3, -4, and -5 being the maximum. -5 being the very worst level of our negative thoughts and consciousness. We can't get worse than that. Now remember, most of us don't think about what we think. So we just let these negative thoughts, emotions, and energies flow into our beings, and from our beings to others, and then to everything. We just let them flow. We are part of them. We are part of the -1 to -5. And since we all have a perception of ourselves that tells us we are good, we are always right, etc., etc., we believe it and we stand by it. And then there are some that go as far as saying, we are the best thing since sliced bread. I am the best thing since sliced bread. Like the famous or infamous political figure we all know, who dominates our news every day. We shall not name him, but let us call him Murphy, because Murphy is an interesting guy. And Murphy is a good example of how wrong one can be in one's perception of oneself. And you may be surprised to realize that Murphy is present in all of us, present in our perceptions of ourselves in varying degrees. So -5 would be the extremity of our negativity. For example, if you have nations and leaders that kill innocent people, women, children, men, starve them, and commit unfathomable crimes, like we see played out before our eyes in our media each day across the globe, these people represent the -5 consciousness level. And yet, they will all tell you that what they are doing is right, because it is always somebody else's fault, perception of themselves. So such people and their negative consciousness represents the -5 level. We have looked at that extremity. And I'm sorry to say that we are all deserving of our own minus points for electing such people as leaders and letting them get away with their crimes. So at a collective level, our humanity today has a very large proportion of -5 present. And this is why our world is in such a terrible state and close to the point where Mother Nature may press the reset button on all of us through her own forces, which I don't need to explain. Look at the spiraling natural disasters in our world and their frequency today. And look at where we stand today at the brink of a climate cataclysm that could put us back into the Ice Age. The last Ice Age was associated with major meteors landing on Earth, crashing on Earth, which then caused the floods that we all read about in our scriptures. This next one is around the corner, and it is entirely human-made. So collectively, our consciousness is heavily tilted towards the -5 level. Of course, to counterbalance -1 to -5, we also have the positive consciousness that goes from +1 to +5, which is equally powerful. And so many of you beautiful souls participated in our most recent shift meditation on the 9th of May 2025, which was held at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, whose goal was to shift our collective human consciousness from -5, i.e. the bright red zone, to the plus level, the beautiful, peaceful green zone. And we did this by meditating on revival of the human spirit. What is revival of the human spirit? Before we are born in this world, each one of us has a very pure human spirit that is anchored in love, compassion, care, peace, harmony. We all come with it. And then once we are born, we pick up all the opposites from the material world. And today, sadly, as a humanity, we have reached -5. At an individual level, some of us are in the plus, many of us are in the minus. We have to do some soul searching to see where we are. So the revival of the human spirit was to take our humanity back to that point where we reconnect with our true and pure essence, true and pure spirit, and bring that into our daily thinking, bring that into our decision making, so that we can change our world permanently for the better. And that was the purpose of the meditation. Now, you may ask, why Göbekli Tepe in Turkey? Where we meditated at Göbekli Tepe is a 12,000-year-old temple. It's the oldest temple in the world. And in this temple, there are symbols that have been etched. And obviously they include large megaliths. Now, in those days, we as human beings were just hunter-gatherers. You can't imagine us Stone Age kids and Stone Age boys and girls putting together something as phenomenal as that. So obviously, highly intelligent technology was transferred to us. And that's how they built the temple. And there were carvings of constellations, and the symbolism of all these carvings point to meteors. So they were basically relating the history of 12,000 years ago and what brought the Ice Age, and they were relating that there were comets that came to Earth. And they also show the different constellations of stars as we know them today, 12,000 years ago, etched and carved into big megaliths, which weigh 60 to 80 tons, which in those days hunter-gatherers could never even move. So that's why we picked the site of Göbekli Tepe, because next to Göbekli Tepe there's another 18 or 20 such sites that were deliberately buried by the people at that time to be unearthed by a future civilization, which is us, because they also carry symbols that point us to where we are. And the common element I see between the two is a climate cataclysm. One came from the meteors, the other is our own making. So this place has been a place of universal gathering. It's not tied to any one faith, but humanity has met in this place since time immemorial to think, to contemplate, to grow, to manifest, to transfer knowledge, to transfer technology. And this place is ideal for that, which is why we held the meditation for revival of the human spirit here. So, coming back to our scales, looking at the top end of the positive scale, 1 to 5, plus 1 to plus 5, that would include beings like Mother Teresa or our holy prophets and spiritual teachers. They would harbor consciousness level of plus 5, for example. So now we have looked at the extremities of our negative and positive scales, minus 5 to plus 5. Now let us come back to how the eternal pool works. This pool flows best with us if we live, think, and embody a consciousness of plus 1 to plus 5. Plus 1 to plus 5, we are within the flow of the eternal pool. Remember those tiny quantum oneness particles. An individual consciousness of plus 1 to plus 5 makes our oneness particles move freely towards other plus 1 to plus 5 particles in our fellow beings and throughout nature, for that matter. So what does this do? It creates positive events, experiences, emotions, and energies within us. So they flow from us, and the experiences and the events come back to us, and within all others that harbor such particles. So positive creates positive, and then we will look at negative separately. So according to the eternal pool, when we give unselfishly, it flows from us to others and comes back to us in positive ways through the flow of the oneness particles, through abundance, happiness, fulfillment, enduring and enriching friendships, positive relationships, and more. It is all driven by our quantum oneness particles. And now you can see how the eternal pool works. You put out unselfishly what is good, and good comes back to you and flows through you because of the nature and quality of your consciousness, which drives the flow of your oneness particles. That's how the eternal pool works. Now remember, I use the word unselfish. So you don't give or do good expecting or demanding something in return, including the gratitude of your recipients that you try to help, because even that gratitude can serve as validation of the ego. So you give unselfishly, expect nothing, and the eternal pool flows with you. So gratitude from others and expecting them to be thankful and expecting them to be subservient to you, that does not count as true giving, according to the laws of the eternal pool. Therefore, my dear friends, you simply put out your positive thoughts and actions out there into the flow of the eternal pool, and you will receive what serves you best in your life's journey. It doesn't mean your life will become a rose garden, no. But it does mean that you will be powerfully enabled to find happiness and fulfillment in the midst of everything, from dealing with crises to celebration of successes. You will change. And when you are part of the eternal pool's flow, you are always abundant and content. You are always fulfilled and never lonely. And basically, all your inner voids are filled with the gifts and blessings of this pool. So now let us explore the converse, the negative side. When we live with an individual consciousness of -1 to -5 individual, what happens then? In this scenario, the oneness particles at our quantum level do not flow freely anymore because of the energy that we put through our consciousness. They slow down and they stagnate, like water stagnates at a dam in a river, and turns septic. So the flow is constricted. The absence of the free flow of our oneness particles and their stagnation creates a deep inner darkness. And we feel this darkness in the form of inner voids, unhappiness, lack of fulfillment, loneliness, and more. You can be with 1,000 people and still be lonely. Because we do not attract positive events and experiences because we are not putting out anything positive towards the flow of the eternal pool. So how is it going to flow back to us? That hand is closed. The second hand, you've taken from the one hand. Everyone's good at taking. Not everyone's good at giving. But you take from one hand and keep the second one closed, you've cut the flow. And when there's no flow, there's voids, there's unhappiness. So when you put out nothing, you are empty. In every sense of the word, you are empty. Because your oneness particles are stagnant and congealed, making you a magnet that attracts more negativity from others. Hence, your events and life experiences tend to be hollow, shallow, and negative, and unfulfilling. But you don't realize this because you genuinely believe in the ever incorrect perception of yourself. Even the likes of a Hitler would tell you that he meant well and that he was a good person. Even the likes of Hitler, because that's what we all believe. So if even at that level, our perceptions can mislead us, then that exists with all of us. Remember I said Murphy is with all of us. So my dear friends, in small and large ways, this is what we all do. We believe we are fine, we are perfect. Some of us believe we are superior. Some of us who have got some humility begin to question that. But in different levels, we all do that. However, based on what we have learned today, we should now be able to know the difference. At the very least, we can all start by accepting a few things. The first one is that our perceptions of ourselves are more likely to be wrong than right. It's a difficult thing to do. But if you start by accepting that, through this acceptance, we take away the barriers our perceptions build before our eyes. We are no longer blind, allowing us to see our true reality through a clearer and wiser lens. And when you see your reality, it's very easy for you to know how to fix it. Next, we can begin to question our thoughts and their quality. In this way, we can begin to think about what we think. So that's the second. Thirdly, we can begin to visualize and understand our oneness particles and the quality of the energy and consciousness that drives our particles. Then we can begin to embrace a new stance by consciously keeping both our hands open and enabling the eternal pool to flow through us once again. Remember, as I said earlier, giving does not have to be monetary. We can give in so many different ways. When I gave a lecture on the eternal pool many years ago in Nairobi, someone from the audience wrote to me much later and said that he heard this lecture, went home and thought about it. And he said before hearing about it, nothing in his life was working. Everything he touched did not work. Everything he tried, he was unfulfilled, unhappy, and literally came to a standstill. Nothing worked. And then he said, I learned, and I opened both my hands, and he said, miraculously, my life changed. So I'm just writing to you to tell you that this has changed my life. So the flow of the eternal pool is very powerful. And once the flow of the eternal pool resumes in our lives, we can discover new and enriching life's experiences that are underpinned by our new inner honesty with our own selves. When you can be honest with your own self, saying, okay, these are my weak points, these are my strong points, I'm not perfect, I'm not this phenomenal person that I've led myself to believe, that honesty is a bitter pill. But once you begin to develop it, you gain complete clarity. You gain complete humility. You change and you enrich your life. And most importantly, the eternal pool starts flowing with you again. So, thankfully, the blessing of this new awareness, with this blessing, we can begin to manifest a lot more positive changes in our lives. Like one of the quotes in my book, Be and It Is, says, "A sin occurs when we fail to recognize that the playground of life has its rules. A sin occurs when we fail to recognize that the playground of life has its rules." Let us explore some of these rules. I'll share 4 with you. Rule number 1, stay within the flow of the eternal pool and do what it takes to remain in this flow. Rule number 1. Rule number 2, seek to grow in wisdom each moment consciously. As you gain more inner wisdom, you will attract through the eternal pool new experiences that will enable you to grow further in wisdom. Rule number 3, be kind and grateful always for the simplest and the most complex of events and experiences. So be kind and grateful always. When you are kind and express gratitude for every experience, the eternal pool will bring you further gratifying experiences. So simply put, like Karima and I have always said to our young ones, stop expecting so much and stop feeling so entitled. In this world, you are entitled to only one thing, the oxygen that you breathe. And when that entitlement goes away, you stop living. You're only entitled to one thing. Even water, which you take for granted, is not your entitlement. Neither are you entitled to the people in your life, and nor are you entitled to their behavior and actions. You're not entitled to anything that comes from them. It's not your entitlement. Remember, expectations and entitlements are powers that belong to levels -1 to -5. Dispel them from your being and replace them with humility and gratitude. Rule number 4, which is one of the most powerful rules that shapes our lives' experiences. What is it, my dear friends? I have encountered numerous people who are simply never happy in the situation that the universe has placed them in. They are never happy, no matter what one does for them. All they can do is pick on what is wrong and then follow through with whining and complaining. So how do I personally react towards such people? My response is to simply stop doing anything for them, because that is the outcome they attract from me, and I'm just a single individual. On a grander scale, the consciousness of such people causes the universe to present them with more reasons to whine and complain, because that's what they are attracting. I've seen real life cases with a couple of my friends when we travel together, where they always end up with more things wrong with their hotel rooms, or in the service they receive, or with the things they order, and they are always singled out where things go wrong. Or they even end up picking the slowest moving lines when queuing at airports. Why? It is incredible, and it is so predictable. I can usually tell what is likely to go wrong for them, and it does without exception. Why is this so? I have just shared minor examples which reflect what they are unknowingly attracting, leaving them constantly exasperated and upset. So golden rule number 4 is put out towards others exactly what you wish to receive yourself. Put out for others exactly what you wish to receive for yourself. A very powerful rule that can change one's life's experiences drastically. Now, there are several more golden rules which I'm happy to share in the future, but the goal of my insight today was to help make you aware that our life's experiences are directly shaped by our consciousness. thoughts and actions. We are responsible for the events we create. And if we wish to enhance and enrich our experiences in this world, we can do so by working with the eternal pool and our oneness particles, starting from today. So I hope that this insight sheds a little bit of light in our lives, gives us something to think about. If none of it makes sense, fine, we haven't lost anything. If it does, and you're able to dramatically change your life's experiences, then I pray that be your blessing.